How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Is my audio okay? Can you hear me?
Sounds good.
Awesome, perfect.
Sorry about the Zoom situation. And we will not be stopped. We will have this interview. We will do it.
I know there's been a lot of bloggers, and seriously, like a lot of it's on mine. I'm really sorry, but like literally, like if I remove this blur, like my apartment is empty. I'm still like buying a bunch of stuff and filling it
Oh,
up because I literally just got here. So
oh,
I just had a big move to the Amazon
oh,
HQ.
nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been loving it so far. Seattle's actually a lot more active than I thought. I
Oh,
feel
really?
like last time I was here, it was super boring and nothing was going on. And now, like, I feel like the city has woken up. You know what I mean?
So today I'm joined by Azzam Hamdan, a security engineer at Amazon. Azzam earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees in cybersecurity in just 4 years, while interning at some of the most competitive companies in the industry. He also has previous experience working for both Tesla and John Deere. He's passionate about penetration testing, cloud security, and mentorship. And he recently gave a TED talk entitled Social Engineering Your Way to Success, where he rethinks the power of soft skills in tech, from securing complex systems to mentoring students from underrepresented communities. Azzam brings a thoughtful, human centered lens to cybersecurity. Azzam, I'm excited to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Excited to be here as well. Thank you.
So, I would love to just get right into it and start with your role at Amazon. You're a security engineer at Amazon. What types of projects are you working on?
So specifically, I'm more of an offensive security engineer, and my job day to day is to basically try to break into Amazon's applications. More specific, their web applications. So if you have a website like Amazon.com, for example, what are some vulnerabilities on there that hackers would try to break into? And I try to hack into them first so that I stop hackers from trying to break into them later. If I find it first and we get it fixed, they can't find it later.
Okay, so you break websites. How did you get into this? Like when you were young, were you a hacker? Did you just love breaking websites, or were you like more of like a web developer and then you found, security holes? Like what was the process for you getting here?
Yeah, I wish I could have like hacked in from when I was like 5 years old, because I'd definitely be a lot better than I am now if I'd been doing it for that long. But
Right.
honestly, I started off, I was in high school and I was doing software engineering, and I love like coding and stuff like that. I took like AP computer science, and I loved straight up coding and building applications, and building cool tools for me to use day to day.
Yeah.
And then after when I was going to college, I realized like software engineering was very cool, but I got a sense that in college they kind of very restrict you on the problem solving aspect of software engineering. I loved how coding could be find any solution you want, no matter how difficult it is, just find your own path. But I felt like in university, it was kind of dumbed down to find this, everyone has to find this one solution and then just submit that. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, let's see what other areas of tech I can kind of get into.
Oh.
And from, looking at like data science or AI and cybersecurity, I thought cybersecurity was the coolest. And that was honestly because like online, I saw like literally hackers and like, there's like Mr. Robot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that'd be the coolest role ever. And now looking back, I feel like that's very naive. Like 90% of security professionals don't actually do hacking. So the role I'm in, I really had to kind of navigate a certain path to get to where I am now. But that's kind of how it started. I was originally going to do software engineering. I looked at so many different parts. And then eventually I just kind of landed on cybersecurity, and here I am now.
What does your typical day look like as a security engineer at Amazon? Do they give you a website at 9 a.m. and you have to break it by 5 p.m.?
No, honestly, it's a little more long term than
Okay.
that. I think, usually it's start of the month or start of a sprint or a project. They're like, okay, we have this new website that we'd like to put out, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna give you 1 month or 2 months, depending on how deep they want it to be, to basically find stuff to break. You know what I mean? Or find stuff
Yeah.
to fix, more to say.
Okay.
So it's kind of more long-term scale like that. It'll almost never be a 1 day kind of thing. But I myself, to kind of make sure I can meet that 2 month deadline and actually find a wide range of stuff, I'll tell myself, okay, on this day I'm gonna give myself, or on this week I'm gonna give myself um 3 days to do this one page of the website, and then another 3 days later to do another page of the website, because the website has multiple pages,
Right.
multiple different, you know what I mean? So I think I kind of split it up myself, but usually they give you like a month or 2 months to kind of break into something.
So you really have to like go through the entire website. That's the idea. And you have to find
Yes.
everything as much as possible.
As much as possible. And sometimes you don't find anything, which is good. That means the
Right.
developers who made the website did a good job.
Yeah.
And also it's like, you know, when you find something, it's crazy because it's like this would have been a website that would have gone into production, not just at Amazon, but at any company. And so
Yeah.
being able to find that early on and catch that so that someone else couldn't later is like a super, I guess, fulfilling thing. And that's what kind of drives me in cybersecurity.
Is this a tough thing for you to turn off? Like when you go to a website, any website to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Are you automatically looking for holes in the website? Like, do you dream about this stuff?
I mean, sometimes I wish, sometimes I'll be on like the Apple website, right? And I'll be like, okay, like, I don't know if you know this, but if you hack into Apple, there's like bug bounty programs online where if you hack into a website, they pay you. So sometimes I'm on like Apple or something. I'm like, man, like, let me try this. This looks like it could be something, and I could
Yeah.
get like $10,000 out of it, for example.
Wow.
But I'd say more recently, I graduated, and there's a website where you get graduation pictures. What was crazy was there is a lot of vulnerabilities on that website. I just found like playing around with it, which is insane. And something like that is dangerous because there's student information on there, there's
Yeah.
sensitive information on there. And people don't think about like these little websites that are for graduation pictures from a small photography company.
Right.
It's crazy. Like they don't think about these vulnerabilities and they're handling this sensitive information from students. This seriously something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, like sometimes when I'm going through websites, I just see vulnerabilities that I'm like, are you guys kidding me right now? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
definitely.
I bet it would be shocking to people like how many vulnerabilities there are on like so many websites.
It must be shocking to people like, yeah, the where you put your information is not
Yeah.
always completely safe. Like honestly, people, a lot of hackers, believe it or not, they don't actually care to like just steal people's information for fun. Like information from you, like if I take your credit card, for example, on the dark web, it's like $1 maybe. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because actually using that credit card can lead to so much more danger than just taking it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So recently, like hackers break websites for like political reasons or like they have a certain agenda, for
Okay.
example. But I think to steal information, it's actually quite easy depending on the website you're on. So
Do you work alone at Amazon or what team are you on at Amazon?
so I'm on a general security engineering team, and
Okay.
under those you have certain people in specific roles.
Tell me about the bot you created to help you automatically buy products from Nike.
So yeah, that's a good one. So basically, I had a that's a great question. So I had a sneaker business that I was running where I'd sell limited edition sneakers, whether it was the newest Jordans or like it's a collaboration sneaker with some famous music artist, right?
Mhm.
And basically, what I typically do is wait at 4 a.m. for the shoes to drop, and I'd buy them for like $200, and then I'd sell them the next day for $800, for example.
Okay.
But you have to be insanely fast. You have to expect anything. Like maybe they'll toss me. I had a website where to stop botters like I made later, you had to like draw a picture accurately, and then they let you through to buy the shoes. It's crazy stuff. Um, and so I kind of just got tired of that. I'm like, okay, waiting at 4 a.m. to buy one pair is not worth it. You know what I mean? This is too much. So I decided, I'm going to use my programming knowledge to actually try to create a script that would essentially buy them for me. So what it would do was listen for certain keywords, find certain URLs that had the limited sneaker name in it. It would automatically go there while I was sleeping at 4 a.m. and buy them for me. And sometimes it'd even get multiple pairs. Um, and then at a certain point, I had it even bypass some security mechanisms, which was also super cool. So I'd say that's probably one of my favorite projects I've ever done myself. So
So how does it work technically? You wrote a script to look for URLs with particular information and then make
yep.
purchases. Like it's making purchases through the website?
Yes. So honestly, it's more of like an automation tool where it's just a listener. It just uses a bunch of listeners to look
Yeah.
for, okay, so some stuff on Nike.com, for example, is stagnant. It never changes. Like
Okay.
the box to input your payment information. That will never change. And there are certain IDs on the back end for those
Oh,
IDs for the input box. And
right.
you just say, okay, like on this page, if this is here, input this information, which is like my credit card and my name and my address, right?
Yep.
The part that is not stagnant, that changes, is the name of the shoe. So sometimes, this is like now going to deep in the sneaker culture.
Right.
People will have early links, and these early links are basically the companies load the sneaker page to drop the shoe on the back end.
Yeah.
But it isn't, publicly available. Like if you go to it, it's nothing. It's just like an API call, basically, right?
Okay.
So, or sorry, it's just a unloaded URL. And so basically you can take that link early on, and people like manufacture these by the name of the sneaker. So if the sneaker is like Jordan 1 Chicago, right? They'll try like uh / Chicago, or like Jordan -1 Chicago, or Jordan 1 Shy, or
I
something.
see.
You have to kind of make these up. And then I take that, I'd put it into my script, and then it just keep loading that page, loading that page. And you can listen for, okay, if something comes up on the screen,
Right.
start doing these processes. And
Wow. Okay.
usually on a website, everything is the same. The size is the same, everything is the same. The button to go add to cart is the same. The only thing that really changes is the name of the sneaker and the picture of the sneaker, realistically, which doesn't really matter to me. So that's kind of technically how it worked.
That's cool. And then basically it's just posting information to make the purchase. You're just you have all the IDs of the fields. You're
Yep.
just then basically inputting the name of the sneaker or the name of the product.
Exactly. So technically, it's actually quite simple, and
Yeah.
people can definitely do this at home. But it worked. It worked. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
That's so cool. You talked about this a little bit, but what are some of the most common security vulnerabilities you see in modern websites and applications? Like, what are the top 5 things that you see most often?
So I would say there isn't like a top five. It depends more so on the site. But
Yep.
one I see very, very often that's such a I can't believe it, is this thing called IDOR.
Oh,
So that's a insecure direct object reference. Are you familiar with that? You said, oh,
no, it's interesting. I
oh
actually
yeah.
don't know what it is. It
Oh,
sounds like something that's going to be that's somewhat technical and interesting.
yeah, so it's called insecure direct object reference, where basically if I have your information, right? Your information isn't gonna be like Brandon's like Brandon's table or something. You know what I mean? It's gonna be an ID. And so however a website wants to do it, whether it's a number, whether it's like a random characters or something,
Right.
you have an ID that maps your information. So let's go back to the graduation website, for example, right? So on that website, to see my graduation pictures, there is an ID that tells me my pictures, right? But that ID, if you change it, instead of 1, 2, 3, I do 1, 2, 4. Now
Right.
I have Emily's graduation pictures or something, right?
Yep.
It's crazy to think about, but that's a real vulnerability that I think, honestly, like if you go to some websites, look at the URL header next time you're on a website. Sometimes it'll say ID equals something. Try changing that. And then if it gives you someone else's information, that's automatically that's like a severe and critical vulnerability. And so you can imagine, not on a graduation page, you can imagine on a website that takes in credit card information or your passport, for example. And if I change that ID and I get someone else's passport, I get someone else's payment information, now that's concerning. You know
Wow.
what I mean? And that's a very, I feel like that's such a low hanging vulnerability to find, because it's literally like in the URL, or if you capture a request, it's literally there in front of you. It's changing literally one character,
Yeah.
but it can have such severe impacts. It's insane to me. And that's
So
something I see often, believe
yeah,
it or
that's
not.
crazy. That makes sense though. So what is the so let's say I'm building a website. What do I want to do to avoid that? First of all, make the ID complex and sophisticated. So it's not just like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's
Don't show the ID to the user.
and
That's
just
just
don't and
just
don't
don't
show the
show it.
ID.
Don't
Okay.
show it. You know what I mean? Like they'll have it directly in the URL. You are not supposed to do that. And also, you're supposed to have that was another thing, access control mechanisms in place, like authentication, authorization. So if I change that ID to 1, 2, 4, even if it's there in the header, let's say, I should not be able to actually get the information back from the server.
Oh,
It should
right.
reject my request.
Yes.
So how that works is, like, you have cookies, for example, right? It should map my access to only the things that are for me. It shouldn't give them to, if I
Right.
put in 1, 2, 4 and I ask for branding information, it should say, you're not branded. You're
Right.
not giving you this. So
Right.
that's, I guess, in simple terms, how that would actually work.
Wow.
Yep.
How do you approach staying ahead of evolving threats in like a fast-moving environment at Amazon? Like, how do you stay ahead of it? Like, are you just practicing? Like,
Yeah, honestly, yeah, like That's that's a good one, especially with AI. I think always, just doing research. I think
Yeah.
even in school, you're always looking at like you're doing research to finish assignments, or you're doing research for like research and stuff like that that you're doing. But I think that, especially in a professional field, and I'm sure you do as well, every day you have to do research to stay up to date on the newest things, whether it's news articles, whether it's updates from, something like what's a good I'm blanking on a good like news channel to find information, but like YouTube, like I'll go on YouTube almost all the time and I'll be
Okay.
like, okay, this is a cool tutorial on how to do this vulnerability. Let's learn about it. You know what I
Oh,
mean? And
yeah.
every day there's new things coming out. Like say, like for example, Windows is, I think deprecating Windows 10 in October or something like that. I could be wrong on that. But now, like if any system does not update on to Windows 11 and they're not updating Windows 10 anymore, there's going to be vulnerabilities that are going to constantly just grow on that. And
Oh,
so that is going to cause some issues. So I imagine eventually like doing research on that later down the line where, people are finding these vulnerabilities. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try that. Let's see how that works. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's always, use your sources. There are people out there who are finding vulnerabilities every day. There are people who are creating tools every day to help other security professionals. Stuff like that. Always look at that. And that's how you stay ahead of everyone else because vulnerabilities are always, there are new vulnerabilities always coming out, and there are
Yeah.
always vulnerabilities getting fixed and patched to where you're not going to see them ever again. And so I guess always like kind of doing research and being up to date with the current news is how you stay ahead and always find new things.
I bet we'll talk about this in a bit, but I bet AI is escalating this like crazy, right? On
Yeah.
the defensive side and the offensive side, right?
Yep. 100%, 100%. I mean, I think how cybersecurity is going to look in a few years is going to be very different with AI. And I kind of still think about how that's going to look like. You know what I mean? So
What
interesting.
what's a recent security problem you worked on that really challenged you?
That's a good one. I'd say, wow. I'd say the most recent problem I had wasn't even technical. It was like a person. I'd say
Oh,
that in the cybersecurity business, especially, communication is crucial. More so because making sure someone understands why you're making a change, why this is a problem, because people can be very prideful about their work because I essentially broke what they made and told them it was bad.
yeah.
So obviously I can't tell them like, hey, this is horrible, fix it. No, like you need to actually bring them through the process, say why this is a problem. This is why documentation in cybersecurity especially is crucial because really, really making sure that people um, understand why something is bad and how they can fix it long term in the future so it doesn't come up again
Right.
is more important than just telling them, "Hey, I found this, it's broken, fix it." And so I think that's a problem I face sometimes where people, even if you bring them through the process and tell them about it, they're like, "Okay, I'll do it later. I'll do it later." But it's like cybersecurity is not a later kind of thing.
Right.
It's hackers don't sleep. Hackers are 24/7. So
So in a way, you're viewed kind of like the bad guy, right?
yes.
Like, in a sense, you're doing something bad, but you're trying to basically help people, especially developers and builders. Like, here, I'm trying to help you make this a better product. And these are the vulnerabilities I found, right? But you're
Yeah.
basically framed as this bad guy.
You hit it on the head, like exactly. People hate change.
Yeah.
And when you tell them to change like something that like their baby, something they worked so hard on for months and months, and now I'm telling them, hey, like there's 100 things you have to fix. This is, not good.
Right.
Then it's like, okay, you know what I mean? So there's a big personable aspect to cybersecurity, definitely.
What kind of tools are you using on a regular basis to break websites?
So I'd say, believe it or not, in cybersecurity, a lot of the beginning reconnaissance, I'd say, is very toolless, if that's a word. You don't really use a lot of tools. It's more like, you know, the first thing I do when I go to any website is identifying endpoints and parameters that I can break later. And then once you have those parameters and endpoints, then you say, okay, this is an input box. Let me do a SQL injection. And then I want to use
Oh,
these tools to try to do a SQL injection later, for example.
okay.
Or hey, like there's this URL and I want to see if it's vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Let me use this to try to use it. So there's a lot of different tools you can use, but it really depends on the situation. I will say the bread and butter I use every single day is this thing called Burp Suite.
Okay.
So Burp Suite captures HTTP requests. from websites, get and post requests, and you can manipulate those requests and see how the server reacts. That is something I use every single day, and I think
Wow.
most security professionals use.
Oh, that's cool. A good example, SQL injection. I know what it is, but can you just describe kind of what it is? And also, like, when you identify a website where SQL injection would actually work, do you have to go ahead and then try, like, I don't know, like 10 queries to see if they actually work? Or, like, do you just know at this point, SQL injection is going to be a problem for this website? You need to fix this. And there are basic frameworks that could fix that. So, those two things, describe what it is. And also, what's your process for testing the SQL injection?
So SQL injection is basically where you have an input box on a website. Say, for example, a website's asking me for my name, right? On the back end, I type in my name, Azzam, and the website takes that in and puts it in a database, right? It has a SQL query that runs on the back end, take the username, put it in the database. Now my name is there. So the vulnerability with that is I can send SQL queries to the database as if I'm the website, I guess. And I can trick the database into doing things that I'm telling it to do rather than the website.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting my name, I can be like, give me all the names in the database. Instead of it taking a name, now it takes my command and it's like, okay, wait, it's asking for all the names. Let me just give it to you. That is fundamentally kind of how that works. And if I find SQL injection, the way I find it is really like if I see a parameter, like let's say the user input, the name input box, right? I want to see if it's doing this thing called sanitizing my input. What
Mm.
that means is if I put a bunch of characters inside, does it remove those characters? So that's usually the blocker with
Oh,
SQL
right.
injection, where
Right.
if I'm putting double quotes, which is like necessary for, if I'm trying to put like a select state, or like, any SQL query isn't getting rid of those automatically. And sometimes like a name for a first name doesn't have a space. So maybe if I put a space in there, which is kind of necessary to have a query,
Right.
maybe it's gonna say, no, we're not having space. And then I have to like change everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why, that I think that's the biggest blocker with SQL injection. And so to kind of narrow down my process, because like you said, like, do I just try 10 queries, for example, and just hope it works? Really, to narrow down your process is you have to see what you're working with. So I have 1,000 queries, for example, right? Let's say 100 of those use a bracket. If I in the user input box put a bracket and it
Yeah.
gets rid of the bracket, I know 100 of those queries are gone. I can't use them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how you narrow it down. There's also tools that can, if you want to do like a more brute force method, for example, there's a thing called a word list, which is like a bunch, like thousands of commands that you can run. And so this is like for people who want to try this, I suppose. Like you can go on Burp Suite. They have a function where you can basically put in this word list, tell it what the input ID is, and it'll run those thousand
Oh,
SQL
wow.
things. Now, of course, like, you might get like if a website has good security parameters, it'll be like, okay, this guy's hitting this 1,000 times. Like, let's block him, for example, right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, then I mean, I guess you theoretically you could try infinitely until something something works. So, but usually websites have a little more like better security mechanisms like than that. So
But what about like a web page that has like 10 form fields, right? Like
yeah,
any one of these form fields could be
yeah.
affected by SQL injection, right? It's not just the name or the email, right? It's any field really could be set up exactly the same way without the sanitation.
100%. I mean, that's why as a developer, like you have to make sure that you're sanitizing your inputs on every field. I had a website that I was testing, not necessarily at Amazon, but at a different company. And it was literally a login page, right? And there was like a bunch of different fields. It was like to sign up basically.
Yeah.
And it was like your name, last name, email, password, put your password again. And then it's like, oh, put like a passphrase, like what's your first animal's name? And it's like you put the name, right? And all of those fields were sanitized except for one. And
Oh,
in that one, I could literally just do whatever I wanted. And it was crazy. And from there, when you find something that is like SQL injectable, like there's this tool that, a lot of people like to use. It's called sqlmap. And I gotta be more familiarized with what it does on the back end. But basically, like when you give it an input that is SQL injectable, it will do a variety of processes and then it'll literally just give you the database, and then you can like on it's crazy.
wow.
And then on the terminal, like I've literally seen this with my own eyes. Like on the terminal, you can like CD into the database into the tables and then into the columns, and then you just see the data, and it's like, okay, this is insane. That is a very crazy scenario. I will say that rarely happens,
Yeah.
but that is, I guess, on like a really, really crazy level how this could happen. You know what I mean? So
When you document problems with a website, do you have to prioritize everything in your documentation? Like these are obvious, SQL injection is a big problem, right? But like a
yeah.
smaller problem might be, I don't know, like a lower priority. Like what does that look like in your
Yeah, yeah.
documentation?
So I think that, you have to think about who your documentation is going to often.
Yep.
So it's going to go to management or senior developers or principal developers who are responsible for this, like the site, for example, right? And so you don't want to waste their time. Like that's a big thing at every organization I've worked at. They're like, okay, like make sure you're straight to the point. Don't talk about like, hey, like I was feeling like this and I wanted, and then I tested this. Like, don't worry, don't worry about that. Just
Right.
say, hey, I tried this, I got this out of it, this happened. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so I would say if it's something that has like PHI or something or PII, like
Yep.
you put that all the way at the top.
Yep.
And then, as stuff gets less important, you go down. But most of the time, actually, at the beginning of any cybersecurity documentation, you usually have like a summary at the top that basically says like, hey, in this, I did a 3-month test of these domains and I found these vulnerabilities and they contained this level of criticality information, right? That's so usually for those really big engineers, you don't even bother going down. You just put it at the top. And if they're like, okay, this is important to me, they'll send it to other developers who will really read through the whole thing.
Right.
But really that's, yeah, you would sort it by importance.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you have a recent TED talk
Yep.
titled Social Engineering Your Way to Success. First of all, how does one get a TED talk? I'm really curious.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to give a TED talk. And so, I'm glad I got to do it before I graduated. But basically, schools, a TEDx is basically a school or like a city hosting a
Okay.
TED talk. And you can apply to it.
Okay.
So rather than like there's a TED and then there's a TEDx talk, a TED talk is something that TED has to invite you to. But a TEDx talk is usually like how you work up to that TED talk. So if you do like 5 TEDx talks and you gain like a reputation for yourself, then they'll invite you to go give a official like TED talk.
Oh, cool.
But
I
I
didn't
think
even
the
know that.
TED,
That's cool.
yeah, yeah, it's cool. So I'd say the TEDx talk is something that like you can have TEDx Chicago, for example, which would be anyone from the city of Chicago can go and give a TEDx talk on whatever they want.
Hmm.
Sometimes they have a topic that you have to stay under, but
Yep.
a lot of times they're just like, go ahead, tell your story or whatever you want to add. Mine was specifically TEDx Illinois Tech, which was anyone from the Illinois Tech area or like that Chicago area could go and apply to that TED Talk.
Okay.
So there was a process for me because I'm a student and they wanted to have one student at the TEDx talk for Illinois Tech. And so I was against a bunch of other students where we
Oh,
basically practiced our TEDx talk in front of like a panel of judges.
oh,
And there was 2 rounds, and at the end of it, mine was the best, I guess. So
yeah.
then they just give you 2 sessions with a speaking coach from TED, which was
Oh,
very cool. That was a great experience.
okay.
So I talked to her one on one, and she was like, "Man, I really love your talk. I think you're prepared." She'll give you tips like, like, "Oh, with my hands, I'm doing too much with them." She's like, "Unequip your hands sometimes." I'm like, "Okay." Like so great, honestly, great information, great advice. And then eventually on the day of, you go to whatever the venue is, and you just kind of give your talk, and that's it. So my talk is gonna come out and it should come out sometime at the end of July,
Oh,
which I'm very excited for. So yeah,
this
that's kind of
this
the
is really
process
good
of looking
timing
up.
then. So for
Yeah,
promotional
perfect. For the
purposes.
people watching this in the next month, look out for it.
Cool. And so how many people were there?
I'd say there was about 50 or 60 people there.
What is your TED Talk about and what inspired it?
Sure. So it's about social engineering your way to success. That's the title. And what it is basically, as a student, and it tells kind of my story as a student where I had a 4.0. I thought I was like doing everything I could to get a job. And I realized like, after going to career fairs, after talking to so many people, after doing interviews, more importantly than your technical skills, your social skills are crucial.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the person you're talking to for a job is a human being. The people you're going to work with on a team are people. You're not going to work with AI. So being a technical robot is not always what a company looks for. I would even go as far to say that if you are, you know, say 50% technical and 50% social versus someone who's 100% technical,
Yeah.
you will have a higher chance of getting hired than that person.
Yeah.
Because before in like vast majority of interviews I've done, they will ask you behavioral questions before the technical questions because they want to work with you as a person.
Right.
Your technical skills can always improve, but your social skills I feel like are a little harder to develop long term. So making sure that you are actually someone they want to work with is more important than, just someone who's technically always, locked in, I guess. And so that's kind of what my TED Talk is about. How even though I had a 4.0, even though I thought I knew everything I was talking about, more importantly, being able to connect with people is actually what helped me land my job. And I actually landed my first opportunity in cybersecurity with John Deere. And I like without an interview, without even applying. And that was literally through talking to someone at a career fair. And I was just literally just, talking about my experiences, talking about their life. Like we weren't even talking about work. We were talking about how they like living in Chicago, stuff like that.
Right.
And they were like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like, if you're looking for cybersecurity opportunities, like let me know. And they connect me with someone else and then someone else. And then eventually that was it. So my interviews were literally more so like just talking with people like an interview, like not like an interview, but like a conversation. That's the better word. Like a conversation, less than an interview, and I got a job. So that was a very cool thing. And I talk about that more in my TED Talk. So
That's great. Yeah. So you connect with people. I can see it here, obviously.
exactly.
Like you,
Oh
you
yeah.
and use your hands, which I like. So
Yeah, but maybe a little too much. I gotta unequip them a little more.
it's funny, but I'm seeing you do it, and I think I'm doing it more because you're doing it. Because I tend to do it too, but I consciously try to control it sometimes. But
Yeah. No, I keep literally on the same page. 100%.
do you think soft skills and strategic networking are still underrated in tech, especially in cybersecurity? Is there something particular about cybersecurity?
Very much so. People for some reason in cybersecurity think that you can be one of those guys in like the hoodie that's in the
Yeah.
basement, never talk to anyone. But like I said before, the reality of it is communication is crucial in cybersecurity. Whether you're an engineer or an analyst, communicating to partners, communicating to people in the organization, that the changes you're making are actually important, is crucial. Because if you are not able to convince people that the changes you want to make are important, then I mean, there's no need for someone in cybersecurity then at that point. You know what I mean? What's the point of
Right.
breaking stuff if it's not getting fixed?
Right.
So I think it's definitely crucial, and especially from a student perspective. When you go to career fairs, when you do these interviews, talking with people is the first step you need. I say practicing your social skills is just as important as the technical skills, and I'd say it's especially important in cybersecurity.
So you earned both your bachelor's and master's degrees in cybersecurity in 4 years. First of all, how did you do that? And what was your approach to learning?
So yeah, that's a good one. So when I went to college, right, I discovered this co-terminal degree program, which is basically a program where instead of doing just a 4-year bachelor's, you can get your bachelor's and master's in
Oh,
5 years. And
okay.
so basically they implement some of the master's classes within your classes,
Right.
and you can graduate with both in 5 years. And a
Yeah.
lot of colleges had that. To do it in 4 years, I kind of did my own Azzam's accelerated master's program
Yeah.
where I literally just overloaded myself. And every time my advisor I literally had to get a special permit from the head of my department to allow me to take so many classes
Yeah.
because they were like concerned. They're like, are you sure you can handle all these classes? Like, if you fail, we cannot, like, you will not get reimbursed. And
Right.
I was like, I got it. So I graduated with a 4.0. So clearly, I mean, I'm glad I could handle it, right?
Yeah.
And I would just take 7 classes a semester, and
Okay.
that is what allowed me to kind of complete all of them. And I guess my process was like, honestly, I was just really enjoying the stuff I was learning. I think that's what it was at the end of the day. I think delegating time management is obviously first and foremost. Making sure that, with so many classes and so many things going on, I
Yeah.
would literally have to like write down my calendar like in handwriting to make sure like, okay, like this is what I have to do by this date, because keeping it all in your head at that point that's high risk. If I miss an assignment in a class, I'm gonna obviously drop my GPA, right?
Yeah.
So I think delegating time, and then, the classes I took, I really enjoyed. I would say like my master's classes were actually fun. You know what I mean? I think that the hands-on experience I got, especially like with my bachelor's program in cybersecurity, was awesome. And it was stuff that I would apply at home. And so going to class was kind of like what I do at home already, like search on YouTube and enjoy like enjoy trying out new cybersecurity tools. I just do that at school.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how it was.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, why did you want to accelerate? And why did you want to do it in 4 years versus five? I mean, you loved it, right? You could have
Yeah.
just done the 5 years, like it's another year,
Yep.
probably the same amount of money, right? You're paying
Yep.
per course. Were you just like, I really want to work and make money? Or like, what was the reason for accelerating it?
Just to get a year of my life back, right?
Okay.
I think school is great. But at a certain point, man, like especially after I did that John Deere and my Tesla internship, I
Yeah.
was like, so many students experience this. The second you actually work and do your job and get paid to
Yeah.
do what you do,
I
you're
know.
like, okay, like this is amazing. Like going to work and solving complex problems that actually have an impact on tens of thousands and sometimes even millions of people
Right.
is such like a huge motivating factor. And I guess at school you don't get that feeling. At school it's like checkbox submit, checkbox submit, checkbox submit.
Yeah.
But when I was at Tesla, when I was at John Deere, because those were my first jobs, I was like, oh my God, like I like when they gave me with the first project, when they actually gave it to me, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like they wanted me to do something that actually had like massive impact. And
Yeah.
I was just an intern. So I was like, are you like, what I mean? I was like, you guys sure? Like I'm an intern.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about these companies, man. They have trust in you, and at the end of the day, you are a professional. You're going into the company, and they expect you to have value and to actually contribute. And I love that. I love internship programs that do that, and I think doing that every day is such a great feeling.
So
So
you basically got a taste of work, what work was
yes.
like, getting paid for work. And did you, I guess, at some point decide, oh, wow, I really like working. I want to accelerate this school? Or did you, from the very beginning, were you like, I'm going to do this program in 4 years?
Yeah, so believe it or not, yeah, after my first year, I actually did some like hands-on cybersecurity
Yeah.
stuff at home.
Yeah.
And I had done some smaller projects for some organizations even before those internships. And that had let me start, I joined the co-terminal program. I was like, okay, let me do it in 5 years. And then after I did that John Deere opportunity, I was like, okay, like,
Okay.
let me just go all the way.
Yeah.
So I was trying to complete it in like 3.5, but I figured, that would be too much. Let me enjoy my college a little bit. So, and of course, I'm a super social guy, so I still make time to like go out with my friends. Of course, don't think I was just in my house all day.
Yeah.
Obviously, the work-life balance is still very important in school. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I did my bachelor's, then I worked for like 10 years, and then I went back for my master's. So for me, it was like a little difficult. I love doing my master's, but it's like you're back in the school setting after 10 years of not doing it. I was already working and making money, and here I am, like people are asking me to do these assignments, and sometimes it
yup,
doesn't resonate with me. Like, well, why? Why would I do this for a grade? This doesn't even make sense
exactly.
to me.
Exactly. That's how I felt after doing my 3-month internship at
Yeah.
Tesla. I came back and I'm like, bro, what is this? Like I was having massive impact and now I gotta like like a little assignment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't imagine after 10 years that feeling must have been like insanely,
Yeah.
that's crazy to think about actually.
Yeah, and I did it as fast as possible. It's the same thing. It was 10
Yep.
courses for my master's, and I did it. A couple semesters, I doubled up, and everyone else was like, What are you doing?" I'm like, I got to get done. I got to get through with this. This is like, I
Yep.
got to get this done."
Yep.
Tell me about SHPE, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. What is that?
So yeah, so the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers is a STEM professional organization for people who are Hispanic, but it's not just for Hispanic people. Especially at my school, the chapter we had, all forms of life, whether they were like literally any type of student could come join.
Yeah.
And basically what we do is help them find, their dream job, help them in their career. And
Yep.
so for me, when I originally joined, I was the student that needed help to try to, accelerate my career. Because like I said, I had the 4.0 and I didn't know what I was doing wrong, right? And when you go, there are people who already have had internships at Apple or
Yep.
Boeing or any big company. And they will literally go to you, by the way, completely for free. This is out of like the students, like heart, I guess, to try
Yep.
to help other students. And so basically they help me with like mentorship, they help me with my resume, they help me with interviews. And eventually, now that I'm in a place where I'm working at Amazon and, I had a Tesla internship and an Amazon internship and I worked at John Deere, all this stuff, now I'm literally continuing the cycle. Now, like I do the exact same thing where I do calls or I speak with students every single day who I try to help them in their career. Like they'll have a resume that isn't properly displaying their skill set. They're like underselling themselves, or they don't know how to do an interview, a technical interview. They don't know what to expect. They don't even know where to go for career fairs, and I point them out to events in Chicago or wherever they are to help them
Right.
find jobs. And so I think that it's just a continuous cycle of wanting to give back and help people. And I'm insanely grateful for, you know, what the people in that organization did for me. And I'm just glad to be in a position where I can give it back. So,
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about AI.
yep,
How is AI transforming cybersecurity, both in terms of offensive attacks and defensive security measures?
that's a good point. So I think that from a defensive standpoint, right, AI is already being used. I mean, let's think about this, right? 30% of code at Microsoft, I think it was 30%, is coded by AI.
Yep.
And so I'm assuming some of that code, or I hope some of that code integrates defensive measures in it. And so obviously, you know, there's some AI code that's going to be honestly more vulnerable to cyber attacks. And there's going to be some AI code that is specific to making sure code is more secure. And so I imagine that code has less attack vectors that you could utilize, right?
Right.
And so, you know, especially in software engineering, you see so many of these AI coders every day. But now what I'm starting to see, which is very interesting, is these pen testing AI tools. There was a big one that just got like hit the cybersecurity news base like a few days ago. And it's literally an AI pen tester that learns as it goes. So
Oh,
previously we relied on like automatic scanners that had, you know, default parameters in place that it would check
yeah.
to see if it works. And if it hits none of those, then that's it. Nothing came up. But now this AI is like learning dynamically on what is not working, what it should try, and it's like, okay, now it's really evolving.
Yeah.
And you know, it makes me wonder how, you know, pen testing is going to look like in a few years. I feel like we're going to soon see an intersection between security professionals and software professionals who are making these AI to help protect a company or attack a company. That's honestly how I see this going in the near future.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Favorite hacking tool you've used recently?
Burp Suite.
Yeah, sounds like it. Most underrated soft skill in cybersecurity.
Communication.
One misconception about security engineers.
We aren't people in hoodies in a dark basement that don't shower.
Favorite tech conference or meetup.
Ooh, DEF CON.
What's the last thing you broke for fun?
Ooh. Wow. I'm gonna say a popular sports league website.
Popular. Okay. What's your favorite band right now?
Ooh, I'm really liking. Actually, I'm more of like a classical music guy. I really like Hans Zimmer. I think
Okay.
his music is awesome.
Okay. What's an activity or hobby you do outside of work?
I play piano.
Oh, very nice.
Maybe that connects
Yeah.
to it.
Great.
Well, thank you
That's
so
it.
much. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was fun. What do you want to do? You want to take a little break?
I'm gonna put the demo together, then we can come back and get that started.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
See ya. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe. More interviews and demos coming soon.